What are we going to talk about?
So, where should we begin? Well, I was thinking about your post this morning when I was reading about some of the overnight developments, and in particular, the point you made about how much provocation the administration can direct at the courts and not have it, significantly undermine what they're trying to accomplish. And lo and behold, Donald Trump comes and issues yet another social media broadside against Judge Boasberg after the message that was received by or sent out by Chief Justice Roberts.
I didn't see that. What did he say?
I don't know that he referred to impeachment again. I don't have it in front of me, and I should, but something to the effect that he was a radical lunatic judge and hadn't won any elections. In other words, a repetition of this fundamental attack, again, post Roberts' statement. And so that's sort of struck me as an interesting approach, as opposed to falling silent, which might have been the better part of wisdom in those circumstances.
But he didn't mention impeachment in the second.
I do not believe that he did.
So what do you think he's thinking? I mean, this can't help him in the Supreme Court with the dozen or more cases that are going to be going to the Supreme Court in the next year. So do they not care? Does the administration not care? Does Trump not care? Does Trump think he can bully the Supreme Court like he bullied all other institutions?
Yes. I mean, I think part of it is that he's always doubled and tripled down. He doesn't believe retreat is, or even perceived retreat is something that he can abide in his playbook. So he's not retreating. And he wants to push one more time on this to show that he's not afraid of Roberts and he's going to stand his ground. That's sort of who he is. So I think that is certainly part of it. And the other thing, and you've made this point too, overall, they think they're winning. And so, what is a mild rebuke from Chief Justice Roberts is not the first he's ever gotten. It's the second he's gotten from Chief Justice Roberts. What does that mean in the broader scheme of things?
Well, I mean, it might mean that he's going to lose a lot in the Supreme Court. I'm not saying that Roberts will shade his views of the law because of this, but it can't help but inform how the court views executive power when these issues come to it. I noticed this morning in Axios that a very senior Justice Department official said that with regard to all the deportation things going on, that they had gamed it out in the Supreme Court and that they were confident they were going to do well in the Supreme Court. Many White House officials have said that as well. And so I have to say, I'm puzzled. I don't think there's a single voice or a single strategy here, but I'm puzzled about how they can attack the lower courts in this really extraordinary way, both in court and outside of court, and continue attacking the courts after what the Chief Justice said, which is their prerogative to do, obviously, and expect to do well with the courts. I don't see how all those things can happen. And I agree with you. They think they're winning, and I think they are winning in some sense. Well, they're winning and they're losing. They're winning politically, I think. They're losing a lot of cases in the lower courts, and they're adding up more and more at the district court level. And it's going to take a while for these things to work their way, even through the emergency orders process, to see what the baseline should be during the litigation, all the way up to the Supreme Court. And it's going to take even longer for the merits to sort themselves out. But at least in the early rounds, they're losing badly in court, in part justifiably because some of these orders are sloppy and some of them are obviously illegal. A lot of them are being poorly lawyered because they just don't have the resources in the Justice Department. So as with so many things with Trump, I'm not sure there's a strategy here. And to the extent there is one, I don't understand it.
No, I agree. I mean, it's a strategy that makes sense in their frame, and in any conventional frame, it looks completely, sort of inexplicable and self-defeating. By the way, you mentioned lawyers being potentially in short supply and very stretched. I noticed that one of the lawyers who appeared in the Perkins Coie case, who was actually on the brief and at the table, has withdrawn from the case. I don't know what lies behind it, but there's some significant issues some of the lawyers in this administration really face. What it is that they can associate themselves with professionally and what they can't. The second thing you said that I think is sort of striking in this regard, if I were, as I once was, and never will be again, the White House counsel, I would really suppress the temptation on the part of officials to talk to the press about how they're confident they're going to win in the Supreme Court of the United States. I mean, I don't know that that's terribly helpful either. This combination of bullying and overtly expressed confidence about the outcome puts pressure on the court that I can't imagine some justices will particularly appreciate. I understand in the normal course, people say we're confident of our legal position, we believe we've made a strong case or whatever. But I think in the general mix of things that they're doing right here, that I don't think that is terribly useful either to them.
I agree with you, but basically that's true of everything they're doing. I mean, nothing that is coming out of the White House would you have counseled as White House counsel.
No, no,
And let me go back to the other point about that person dropping off the Perkins Coie case. So I just wonder about this. We've seen so many of these briefs and oral arguments are being done by the very top political appointees. I mean, the Attorney General is signing, is the top lawyer named in the emergency orders appeals from the Boasberg matter. And in all of these significant cases, the briefs are being signed and argued. Think about what happened in SDNY. Think about the Perkins Coie case. Think about the Boasberg matter involving the Alien Enemies Act. It's really extraordinary and unprecedented that these type of cases would have the briefs signed by the Attorney General and be argued by. Wasn't the Perkins Coie case argued by someone in the Attorney General's office? I
chief
mean,
of staff, chief of
yeah.
staff
So,
of the
so the fact that someone, I don't know if that person who dropped off the Perkins Coie case was a political appointee or not, but I alluded to this yesterday in my piece. We don't know what kinds of pressures, I mean, the kind of political appointees just below the very top or under, what they're doing, how they're viewing this. We do know that they had to pledge absolute fealty to Trump. The Attorney General has made that clear. We know that that's the way this administration is operating. And it is just a very awkward position for any lawyer with integrity to be in. It's just a very awkward position.
Absolutely. And, in the Russell Vogt tape that we and others have commented on in our postings, or the one we did on radical constitutionalism, he basically made the point, and it seems to be borne out in experience, we just don't want lawyers in the room. We're going to tell the president no. I mean, it's just out there. It's not only what might be said quietly inside the administration, it's been sort of proclaimed by the current OMB director, who's driving a good bit of the, such as it is, ideology of the administration, that lawyers are to be playing either a completely supporting, unquestioning role, or they're not going to play any role at all. So they're doing exactly what they said they would do.
And my sense is, both from what I've read and based on conversations with various people, my sense is that inside the administration, there's a kind of tough person game going on to see who can do the most outrageous public loyal thing for the president. And anyone who deviates by trying to offer legal counsel that is not on board for what the president wants apparently just loses influence or is reprimanded, and there's just a giant chilling effect with that in that regard. Now, one thing I don't understand is how this is working with the Solicitor General's office, because to date, SG, the acting SG, Sarah Harris in the Supreme Court, has acted with respect to the court and has tried to make the best legal argument she can in the emergency orders context. The SG has to exercise some discretion and some legal discretion, because the SG has to maintain credibility before the court, and which is just extremely difficult to do in this context.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be beyond difficult. And then that raises the question for the SG, who's continually being undermined in these efforts by presidential tweets and other on the record statements by the administration. That just kind of gives the lie to the commitment that she's communicating to the court about the administration's commitment to the rule of law. Let me just mention one other thing. I don't know, I have not had a chance to really delve deeply into it, but I was struck by something else that I think relates to some of the comments we're making here about how the court's going to respond to this administration. And that is the extraordinary circumstances surrounding the occupation of the building and the discharge of the officials of the U.S. Institute for Peace. Now, I'll begin by saying I don't know a whole lot about the U.S. Institute for Peace, except that Ronald Reagan signed congressional legislation that created it. It's congressionally appropriated. And among other things, in this work that it does to try to bring about solutions to conflict overseas, it has a regular congressional reporting function. I don't know whether it's mandated or by norm. And one thing that struck me about that entire extraordinary story, bringing in the Metropolitan Police, forcing doors open, basically frog marching the current officials out, even though there were supposed to be very specific grounds on which to displace leadership of the organization. I noticed also that in the course of the back and forth between the former leadership of the U.S. Institute for Peace and Doge, that was trying to take over the operation, in the course of that, um, the Department of Justice became involved, I think through the U.S. Attorney's Office, in threatening those who were resisting with criminal prosecution or investigation. I think specifically investigation. And that just struck me. Here we have sort of pieces of this starting to come together in a way that really makes an impression of an administration that will stop at absolutely nothing. I mean, here you have an organization that is created by Congress, appropriated by Congress, reports to Congress, and all of a sudden the police are in the building, their doors are being forced, and any principled or legal resistance they put up is being met with a threat of investigation by the Department of Justice. That is an extraordinarily ugly picture, and again, I think it really damages this administration's ability to put itself credibly before the courts. They read the papers, they see what's going on, and of course, there's a related case currently pending having to do with the National Endowment for Democracy that they've also attacked, which is again created by Congress, appropriated by Congress, and fulfills a congressionally designated function. I don't know whether I'm overreading that, but that just struck me as an astonishing story.
And just as astonishing, and maybe we can end here, just as astonishing is Congress is, at least the Republicans in Congress are silent about all of this, as far as I can tell. At the end of the day, if Congress doesn't care about the institutions it creates, I mean, the courts can, draw the line at maybe not completely eliminating these agencies, but the executive branch has discretion to organize these things, and it has a lot of tools, lawful tools and tools on the edge of legality to undermine and incapacitate these institutions. And we're seeing it happening in so many ways. And frankly, unless and until Congress cares, and we've seen hints of that, but only hints, unless and until Congress cares, and unless and until the people care, he's got a lot of room to run, I'm afraid.
I'm afraid to say I agree with that.